What is going on, YouTube? In today's video, I want to talk about the 3 different grading services and what types of cards you should submit to the 3 different ones. So if you've been around the hobby for a while, you probably know by now that PSA, SGC, and BGS are the top 3 grading companies out there. You also probably know that they all have different tendencies when it comes to certain cards. Some will grade certain cards harder, others will let some things go. So when submitting cards to any of the 3, it's important to know, especially if you're looking to get the highest grade or to be able to maximize the resale value, what different companies look for. So in today's video, I want to talk about what each of the 3 different companies look for, and when you're looking at cards, hopefully this can help you decide which company you're going to submit to. So the first company I'm going to talk about is PSA. So when submitting to PSA, from an overall perspective, they are probably the most stringent grader of the 3. However, there are certain qualities of a card that PSA is less stringent on. So let's go over those. So when evaluating a card, you're looking for centering, surface, edges, and corners. When it comes to centering, if you have a card that is slightly off center, like this Zion card that got a PSA 10, you might consider sending that card to PSA. PSA has some more lenient guidelines when it comes to centering, especially for some of the higher grades. If you're going to send this card to Beckett, this would have probably gotten a 9 subgrade on centering, which would have kept it from getting a perfect pristine 10. It would have most likely been a Gem Mint 9.5, however with that one low 9 subgrade. Next, when looking at cards, you want to look at the surface. PSA is very, very strict with front surface. So if there is any print flaw or any scratch or anything like that, that is going to significantly hurt the grade from PSA. Anything with a surface issue should probably go to Beckett. Beckett is less strict on the front surface. On the back surface, PSA has been pretty lenient about any issues that are direct from the printer. So especially on Prism and Optic, you'll see some light scratching. That's typically okay. If there is an indent or some other issue that's something that's not direct from the printer, PSA will ding you on those. When it comes to edges, PSA is pretty strict on the edges, so they'll need to be perfect. And when it comes to corners, PSA is very strict on corners. If there's any minor corner issues, that almost immediately dings it down to a 9, if not lower, whereas Beckett seems to be a little bit more lenient on corners. So this card received a PSA Gem Mint 10. Next, I want to talk about Beckett and what Beckett looks for. Beckett, when it comes to centering, is very strict. So a card needs to be almost perfectly centered to receive that 10 centering, and any difference in the centering will almost automatically knock that centering down to a 9 or an 8.5 subgrade. When it comes to surface, Beckett is more lenient on surface than PSA and SGC, and if a surface grade has a 9, or in this case even the surface has an 8, there's more likely a significant scratch or issue with the surface that only took this grade down a point, whereas with SGC and PSA, something like on the surface like a scratch can really take the card down to a 7 or possibly even an 8. When it comes to edges, Beckett's pretty in line with PSA as far as being strict on the edges. However, when it comes to the corners, that is one of the areas Beckett is probably most lenient with, where it can have a significant corner flaw and still receive a 9 for corners and potentially even a 9.5 overall grade if everything else checks out okay. And then finally with SGC, they fall somewhere in the middle from PSA and Beckett, I think, on a lot of the different qualities. So when it comes to centering, they're probably more closely related to PSA. Having some slightly off-center cards can still get a 10. When it comes to corners and edges, they are more aligned with Beckett, where something can have the very slight white on the corners and still receive an SGC 10, where that probably wouldn't happen in a traditional PSA slab. And then when it comes to surface, they fall in line probably in the middle as well, with being able to have a slight surface issue, but possibly not as much as Beckett allows for surfaces. So now that you know what the 3 major grading companies look for, what different types of cards should you submit to the 3? SGC has traditionally been known for pre-war cards, so anything in the tobacco era. However, they're starting to gain some traction on the modern cards with a lot of submissions going there, and I think it's too early to probably be seen if they become a major player in the modern market, but we'll have to see going forward. So anything that is traditionally pre-war, or also something that you maybe want to get back a little faster and done a little cheaper than PSA, I would recommend sending to SGC. For Beckett, I would say modern cards that are 2000 and newer, and also maybe have some other type of surface or corner flaw that would hold them down from a PSA 10 should be submitted to Beckett. So a lot of your Bowman Chrome rookies or Prism cards, those are great for Beckett as long as the centering is good, especially if they have a minor flaw in the surface or corner that would generally keep them from a Gem Mint PSA 10, but they can get a Gem Mint 9.5 with Beckett. PSA range is probably the most versatile of the 3, where I've seen a lot of high-grade pre-war cards do well in PSA slabs, all the way to vintage, all the way to modern cards. So if you have a modern card that looks nearly flawless and you want to maximize the value, PSA is probably the route to go with that. And it's not necessarily because they are the most strict grader of the bunch, although I think they are, or any other factor. At this point, I really think it has to do with the PSA set registry and that aspect of it. They also have the most graded items out there. Overall, for Collectors Universe, there were around 81 million collectibles they've certified, where SGC at this point, I'm not sure, but I think is well under a million, and Beckett recently crossed over that 10 million mark here in the last couple of years. So as far as the amount of cards that are out there, PSA has the most graded cards. Hope you find this information useful. Let me know in the comments what you think and what cards you'll be submitting to PSA, BGS, and SGC.